Calling all authors, the Your Book, Your Voice podcast with host Robert A. Lane features everything you need to know about narrating your audiobook, but it doesn't stop there. We have special guests lined up from all aspects of the book publishing industry, and we also dive deep into what it takes to be mentally prepared for success as an author and in life. So please welcome your host, Robert A. Lane.
Hey, my friends, how are you doing? This is Robert A. Lane, your host with the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate you being here. This is your first time tuning in. I am an audiobook coach and producer, and I specialize in helping nonfiction authors take their book to the next level. Yes, take their books to the next level by having them narrate their own audiobook in their own voice. Because you, if you're a published nonfiction author, you do need to narrate your own audiobook because it's your story and only you can tell your story. Only you can speak your story the way it is intended to be heard in your own voice. And that's what I do as an audiobook coach and producer. We do have a special show for you today. I'd like to go ahead and welcome my guest who is going to be with us for the duration of the show, and really excited to bring in Marcy Pusey as my special guest on the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. But before we dive in, just a couple of things I wanted to mention to you. First of all, if you are an author and you don't have an audiobook, you can leave Marcy in if you want. We could all see her. I do have a audiobook coaching program, which is called Your Book, Your Voice. If you'd like to find out more information about the program and be published on Audible, Amazon, and Apple Books by the end of the 6-week program, that's what I do as a coach and producer. All you need to do is book a call with me. We will put a little graphic up there just so that you can check out. This is the link for you to book a call. So I'd love to hear from you. And for those of you who are seeing the podcast live or on replay, there is, as you see the graphic there, which is a bit.ly link, bit.ly/audiobook onboarding is what you can click to book a call. And you will speak with me directly. We'll talk about your book, your marketing strategies, and I'll give you more information about the Your Book, Your Voice audiobook coaching program. And for those of you who are hearing us audio only, again, that link is bit.ly/audiobook onboarding. And the other thing that I wanted to share with you is everybody who tunes in, you do have a freebie. I love giving freebies. And I have an audiobook narration reference guide that is there for you to help you with your narration. So grab that as well. For those of you who are watching the video, there's the graphic there. It's another bit.ly link, bit.ly/narration reference guide. And there's some great information there that you can download. It's a PDF download about both the practical aspects and the emotional aspects of how to do a great audiobook narration. So wanted to get that out there for you. And now let's do an official welcome to our very special guest, Marcy Pusey, who is also a professional in the book space. She is a story coach, a publishing consultant, also a best-selling author, which is awesome. Love that. And she is an international 2-time TEDx speaker, which is really awesome because I want to do speaking engagements too. So I'm going to have to ask you about that for sure. And then there is a couple of things that Marcy has done that actually fit into what we're going to be talking about for today's episode on this podcast. She is a certified trauma and resilience practitioner, and she is also a certified rehabilitation counselor. And these are really important aspects that we will be diving into because our topic basically is author resilience. And resilience is key, especially when you are an author, because every author who has a published book, as far as I'm concerned, you are a professional. You need to take your business seriously. You need to consider yourself an entrepreneur because you are. And living the entrepreneurial life can be very stressful. It's not easy, because if it was, everybody would do it. but resilience is key. So, Marcy, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be part of the conversation.
Great. So are we. So how did you get into the being a professional in the book publishing space? How did that all come about?
Yeah. Well, I tell a little bit of one of these stories in the first TEDx talk, just that I was raised in poverty and and during a time during the last couple decades ago where you couldn't self-publish or get around the gatekeepers in publishing, right? So, and it wasn't viewed as a profession or a career. It was sort of that starving artist thing, right? Like, I hope you have a
Mm,
backup plan if you're going to go be an author. So I didn't know that you could grow up and become an author or a speaker. And so I became a therapist, which is great. But from young, I was a writer. This is just how I processed my own world, my own life, my own thoughts came out that way. I talk about winning a tickets to the circus when I was really young and getting to treat my family to the circus, and that feeling like such a big deal for us. I mean, McDonald's was a huge monthly reward if I got all the stars on my chart. So the circus was a whole other beast. And it wasn't until I began having children and had a friend who was publishing books traditionally that I thought, maybe you can do this professionally. Like, I know a real life human who's doing it. And so she's got her foot in the door. Maybe she can help me. So that was probably around 2000, oh goodness, 2008 maybe, where I began to wonder what that might be
mm,
like. And so I spent the next 7 years pursuing publishing in the traditional industry, had a couple small press things happen there, and then had the opportunity to learn how to self-publish. And I kind of did it like secretly, like, don't look at me while I'm over here trying to figure this thing out, because the traditional industry didn't have anything nice to say about self-publishing people. But I just wanted to like, can I do it? Can I like finally get my books into the hands of people and own my creative control and the timeline and all the things? And you can do it. I'm happy to tell you that you can do it. I've done it, I don't know, 15 plus times now. Best-selling award. I think all of my books have won awards. And eventually my traditionally published friends began coming around saying, how are you doing this? What are you doing? And so I began to help people and now have a business helping people. But it all just kind of came organically through my own experience and people watching it and me watching it. That very
mm.
first book that I self-published was an adult nonfiction for foster adoptive families. And within a month, I was standing on a stage as the keynote speaker. I had never just been randomly invited to be a keynote speaker, but because I'd published, I was immediately invited to be a keynote speaker on a stage. And that night, so that month that led up, plus the night and the books I sold there, I recouped all of my original investment into the publishing of the book. And I was just stunned. And it wasn't even about the money for me. It was that the book was to impact people and to help people. But
Mm.
now, because of the book, I was able to expand how I did that from a stage and engage a whole different group of people who hadn't read the book yet and share the book with them and vice versa. So it just, that's how I got into it. It's just been this incredible, unexpected path in life.
No, that's a great story, and it just shows that again, when we're talking about author resilience, there are things. There's going to be external forces
Yeah.
that are going to be trying to create barriers to stop you
Yeah.
from moving forward. And that's what makes entrepreneurship really hard, because you have to be tough. You have to be resilient, and you have to be focused. And you also have to have a business plan and map things out and run your business as an author professionally so that you can
Yeah.
reach the goals that you're striving for. But that is a great testament to when you put in the work, when you are resilient, when you have your mind in the right place and you're focused, great things happen. Doors open. Things that are unexpected
Yeah.
happen. By writing that book, by having that published book, you've just established yourself as the expert in your space, and
Yeah.
that definitely opens up eyes to other people who are like, hey, I'd love to have this person speak at my company or do a TED talk, or and the beauty of it is that you also sold more books, you did make
Yep.
money at it, and all it did was just fuel again uh, your entrepreneurship, so that you're able to uh, build your business and now help other people. So it's a great story. It's a really great story. So tell me about your business itself, and what you're doing with the clients that are looking for the services that you offer.
Yeah, thanks. So I run a business called Mira Mare Ponte Press because when I started the company, it was just my own publisher. I didn't care if anyone could pronounce it, as we talked about. Now people have to say it. It's on stickers, people like, so Mira Mare would be the very English way. Mira Mare Ponte Press. It means a view of the ocean, like from a bridge, a view of the ocean. And
Mm.
I love the ocean. I love bridges. There's a castle I love named after it. So all this great
Yeah.
meaning. Anyway, Mira Mare Ponte Press, Italian. And I help people primarily in two phases of the writing and publishing journey. So on the writing side, I love to do almost therapeutic story coaching. I'm really good at helping people find their story within the story, make it
Mm.
really good. I bring my awareness of the brain and how story impacts the brain, lights up the brain, actually gives resilience to our readers if done well and right. This is my first TEDx talk as well, where I talk about our brain as it relates to story. It's incredible, and we really need to be good stewards of that. But most people don't even know the ways that story uniquely lights up somebody's brain. So
Mm.
there's a whole element that I bring to story coaching there where I'm helping people through their own mindset things, their own insecurities, all the things you said. Am I good enough? Is my story good enough? Does anybody care? And then also, how do I now create something that will actually benefit people in the way that I hope it will? So that's one side of my business. And the other side is I have a draft and I have no idea what to do next. How, like, I put the words down. Now, how do I make this a book that people can buy on Amazon or from a shelf in a store or whatever it might be?
Mm.
And so I have two primary ways of helping people there. I have a done with you, where I sort of teach people to fish. So I work myself out of a job. I'm like, here, this is what I do. And here, you can do it, and you'll have me in your pocket the whole time. And those people can replicate that over and over and over with all their books. And then I have some people who've said, I don't want to learn it. I don't know if I can learn it. I don't have the time to learn it. Will you just do it for me? So then I
Mm.
offer custom publishing for people where I do all of the work for them to get their book published, from editing through launching and helping them get beyond the book that's published and on shelves. And I help them get into retailers and libraries and Amazon as well, how to get author copies, all the things. So I can't publish books that people haven't finished writing. And I also believe so much that everyone has a story that matters. Like, I don't say that as a cliche or a trendy topic or hashtag. I genuinely believe we all have stories that matter and that somebody needs.
Mm.
And so I have a real mission to help people do that well, tell it well.
Yeah, and
That's my,
I'm 100% with you on that. Every person really does have a unique story to tell.
yeah,
And nonfiction authors, I believe this, and I say this all the time, and I'm a big proponent of it, which is why I do what I do as an audiobook coach, is that every nonfiction author, every published nonfiction author has a book out there. If you don't have it in audiobook form, you need to narrate your own book because it's your story. You know, no one can replicate you. And that's
yeah,
what makes you unique. And that's part of what creates the author brand, because you are a brand as an
yeah,
author. This is your business. This is your brand. You know, that's what makes you so unique. And that's why people who are attracted to what you have told in your story and in your books, that's why they're attracted to you, because of your uniqueness.
yeah.
We're going to dive definitely more into this and about how resilience plays a crucial
Mhm.
role in your author brand. You're listening to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane with Robert Lane Coaching. My very special guest is Marcy Pusey, and we will be back. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. So much more coming up next. Don't go away.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
All right, we are back on the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane, your host with Robert Lane Coaching. My very special guest today, of course, is Marcy Pusey, who is also a coach in the book space. And we're glad you're here. We're going to talk about and dive more into author resilience, because resilience is really key, especially for you as a nonfiction author. You have to take your business seriously. Again, I have like a billion catchphrases that I throw out all the time, and one of them is, you are the CEO of you. The buck stops right here. It stops with you. So the decisions that you make as an author, those are business decisions. Those are things that you need to do, and some business decisions are tough, and but that's all part of entrepreneurship. You are an author brand. Your brand is unique. That's what makes you so unique, and that's what makes you you. And your product is your ebook, paperback, hardcover, audiobook. Those are your products. You have them out there in the world for people to be able to pick and choose the format that they want. And again, having a book is a great thing because it does lead to other things, especially if you are a coach, or maybe you are an entrepreneur in a different field. Maybe you're an educator, or you write children's books, or you're a poet. I mean, these are all things that only you need to narrate your own book, because no one can replicate you. And you just need to preserve the integrity of your author brand, because your voice is already in your written word. It's there on the written page. When somebody's reading a book, I guarantee you they're imagining some voice in their head when they're reading. I mean, I do it all the time. Maybe it happens to you, Marcy. I don't know. But wouldn't it be great to hear the author tell their story in the way that they want it to be told, even with another narrator? You can have another narrator do your audiobook, but guess what? It's still their interpretation. Maybe they're not presenting the way that you would express it, no matter how professional they are. That's why I'm a big advocate of having all nonfiction authors narrate their own audiobook. Now, when it comes to resilience, Marcy, I know that you're a certified trauma and resilience practitioner, and I saw your TED Talks, and some of it was pretty intense. So with the stories, with the story that you shared, which I'm sure definitely was a factor to doing what you decided to do by becoming certified. By all means, if you'd like to share how that came about, I think people would really be interested in hearing this.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point. I definitely, well, I'll back up. My undergrad work, my bachelor's is in social work. And from there, I went into, clinical counseling, therapy, that kind of thing. So from early on, we always said that the reason social workers became social workers or therapists became therapists was to work out their own stuff. Like, we're just a bunch of people hoping that our education will help figure us out, and then we can heal and grow. And there's a lot of truth to that. So I was already on the path, but then became a foster parent to a number of kids, adopted some of those kids. A number of those kids had attachment dysfunction, personality disorders as a result of their trauma. So I'm a young mom who's pretty educated around these things, drowning in the parenting of these unique needs. And then, before that, the year, 4 days before my first wedding anniversary. So we started fostering about 3 years into our marriage, but a year in, my mother-in-law was murdered by my father-in-law while we were sleeping in the house down the hall. So I talk about that in the second TEDx talk. I have a book on it called While We Slept, because we were sleeping and we woke up into this whole new story. And then we brought kids in like 2 years later. 2 years later, we brought kids with personality disorders and all this trauma. And then as life went on, I also became aware, I'm going to word this carefully and interestingly, that I was in an abusive marriage and that there were some similarities in the kinds of attachment things to some of my older kids. So basically, I became a trauma and resilience practitioner because there was so much trauma happening around me and with me all the time. It started with me really trying to understand how to help my kids because I had been trained to help kids. I was a behavior analyst for a while. I worked in foster homes and group homes and all these places. So I felt equipped until I was raising children of trauma myself, and none of my tools worked. So I really then took a deep dive into understanding the consequences of trauma and how do you help people who've had traumatic events, traumatic experiences come out the other side at all, let alone with resilience or even post-traumatic growth. And then my own life just kept unfolding the way it did. So I needed to practice deeply everything that I was learning. And what I found is that most people aren't talking about it, more so now. But when I really started digging in, there was not a lot of information. And in fact, still many, if not most therapists are providing kinds of therapy that don't touch traumatic experiences at all. Talk therapy does not address trauma. So that's really shaped then the kind of help I seek, the kind of help I offer, and how I take care of myself with that understanding. So yeah, summary, I became a trauma and resilience practitioner because I needed a like rope to hang on to in life to get through it. I needed to understand what was going on in my own body, what was going on in the bodies and brains of my kids, that I could just keep us all above water. And here I am above water.
Yeah. And you survived.
I've done it. I'm surviving. I'm thriving even. I'm healthy and whole. But man, it takes work. And that's what you were talking about even earlier, just getting through the process of telling your story. People quit all the time for things they can't see. Yeah. They might have some thoughts around why they're quitting, but they really can't see the reasons that they're quitting. And it takes such dedication and hard work to push through to end up a resilient person.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there are times, and it's, like when I have clients go through the audiobook coaching program, for example, it's not just, here's your equipment, set up your studio, space, and whatever. Mindset is like the first lesson that I teach them.
Yeah.
Mindset is key. You cannot, if you're not grounded, if you're not focused, if you're not in the present moment, if you, are not in your zone to tell your story, then your audiobook is not going to sound that great because you're not in the right frame of mind.
Yeah.
And that's crucial. So again, it is work. And sometimes you do have to strip away the layers and get down to the root cause of what it is that's creating these barriers. Yeah. For me and with my clients, a lot of it is that they don't like their voice, or they have lack of confidence, or maybe they are afraid about speaking in public. And then, when they do this and they put a microphone in front of their face, it freaks them out. So those are things that we work through that have a great impact in regards to how they sound when they do a narration. And like you're saying, it's what makes a great audiobook, for example, and I'm sure this is what makes a great book in general, is it's not the things like you said, that you can touch, that you can feel, physically feel, but it's the things that you emotionally feel. So you have to be tied into your core reason of, why did you write this book in the first place? Why is it so important for you to tell your story? Why was it so important for you to publish this book so the world can, learn or be emotionally moved with the story that you have to tell. You have to be tapped into that emotion, because it's the intangibles that create a great book. It's the intangibles that make an awesome audiobook narration, because now you're tapping into the emotion, and that emotion comes through. And it's funny, because like when people read a book or they listen to an audiobook, they're like, "God, that was such a great book. I really love listening to that book," and they may not know why. It just there's just something about it, and that something is the intangible. And that is the key. That's what turns a mediocre book or a mediocre audiobook into a fan-frickin-tastic book and a fan-frickin-tastic audiobook. So I'm really glad you mentioned about that, because it's really crucial. Do you run into any barriers with the clients that you work with? Like what are some of the common things that you need to help them work through?
Yeah. So from the writing side, you touched on something that is good to touch on, and there's so much depth to it, and that is that you need to tap into the emotion. Well, for a lot of people, and especially nonfiction, though not only nonfiction, writers, tapping into an emotion of a story they're telling is usually going to have elements of hard things that they've gone through. That's why they're telling their story. Here's my overcoming story. So our brains are wired to avoid and resist revisiting hard things. So they might just feel like, I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I have a good enough story. I don't know if I like my voice. Or in my case with writers, does anybody care? Who am I? The imposter, all the imposter stuff, right?
Yes.
And usually then at that point, that's a cue for me to check in deeper than that and say, okay, where are we in the story? And what can I see that your brain is reacting to help you avoid, to keep you safe? And then how can we help your brain understand that you are safe? Because healing occurs when we revisit our hard stories, but from the safety of the presence, right? But our brain is always resisting that opportunity because it's scary. It's like, no, the last time we were there in real life, that was terrifying. We're not going back. Some will never even finish their books for that reason, right? But when I get to work with somebody in that space, I can help them catch that. So then there's some really good conversation, coaching, mindset work around what does it mean to allow yourself to be uncomfortable, to experience some of that emotion that's hard, and yet stay grounded in the moment. Know you're not alone. Know that you have resources. Know that, like you said, there's a purpose, there's a mission, there's something you want to give the world as a result. But until you allow yourself to sit in the uncomfortable emotion and work through it again yourself, you'll never be able to share your story with the world. You have to have done some level of wrestling yourself to be able to keep moving it forward and bring about that authenticity. And you can tell with a writer or a speaker who hasn't done that, because they'll get real distant from their story as they're telling it. It becomes real heady. Just like you said, we lose the emotion in the writing and we lose the emotion in the speaking. But for someone who can really sit in the feeling of it and just allow that to be communicated because they've done their work, the audience, the reader, gets to experience that too. And then the impact on their own brain is tremendous. So a lot of the work that I do with my writers is being aware of where their own brains might trigger into a fight or flight or resistance to avoid revisiting hard things in their lives or scary things, and then helping them actually heal as they process through that, but with the support that they might need from a writing coach, right? So you think writing coach is just going to help me write, but I have to go in at such depths with people and help and understand, okay, what's their brain doing? How can I help them uncover their unique details of what's going on and then push through that? And that's where we get to see true resilience and growth and just the most incredible healing stories in telling your story.
Absolutely. And the one thing that you hit on is mega crucial, and that is authenticity. You have to be your authentic self. And I stress that so much with my clients as well. You don't want to be radio DJ guy or girl, right? You want to be your authentic self, because that again is part of your author brand. Your uniqueness of who you are, what makes you you, is what makes your brand as an author so unique. It's like, let's say you have weight loss coach A and weight loss coach B, and they're both equally qualified, and maybe They have similar techniques and tools that they teach, and they're both writing books or maybe doing an audiobook. But if weight loss coach A is just, like you say, very heady and just going through the motions and being all, hey, this is what I do and whatever, that's not going to really resonate with as many people like weight loss coach B, who really gives of themselves completely by being 100% authentic. And authenticity, again, is still one of those intangibles. You can't physically touch it, but man, you sure can bring it out through your emotion, through your energy. All that is just so important. So, great point. Great point. Authenticity is key.
Yeah.
Love it. And it's funny that you mentioned about, I was going to save it for the next segment, but I think I might just jump into it right now. Oh, no, well, we're going to have to be taking a break, so maybe I will save it for the next segment. But there is something that I wanted to talk to you about in regards to putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and how that does build resilience and how all of this does affect you as an author. So your stories are great, and again, if you're watching and listening to this podcast and you're an author, you're like, well, how does that relate to me? It does relate to you as an author and as a business, because resilience is key. And these are things that are so important to build resilience and to build confidence in yourself and in your business as well. And we will touch more into that. And I do have some fun things that I'm going to be talking to Marcy about in our next segment as well. So you are tuned in to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane with Robert Lane Coaching, your host. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. Much more coming your way, so don't go away.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
And welcome back to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane with Robert Lane Coaching. My very special guest is Marcy Pusey, who is a story coach, publishing consultant, and also is a certified trauma and resilience practitioner, as well as a certified rehabilitation counselor. All things that really do directly or indirectly affect you as a nonfiction author. And we will be diving into a little more of this in just a second, but I again want to share with you again, if you are a nonfiction author and you have a published book and you have not turned your book into an audiobook yet, that's what I do as an audiobook coach and producer, is to help nonfiction authors turn their book into an audiobook, and the process is 6 weeks. That's all it takes. I provide you with the equipment. Seriously, I send you professional equipment that's yours to keep. You don't send it back to me, it's yours. I teach you the fine art of voiceover, narration, how to do a great audiobook, how to be authentic, how to be conversational, bringing those intangibles, the emotion, as well as the practical aspects, like body posture, mic placement, hydration is really important. There's a lot of things that we talk about, but the beauty about the program is taking away the confusion and hassle and overwhelm and stress of narrating your audiobook. I want you to focus on your narration. I handle all the editing for you. That's part of the program. We make sure your audiobook is to the exact specifications for publication, and you will be published on Audible, Amazon, and Apple Books. Granted, there are other places to be distributed, and we do talk about that in our initial meeting. When we talk about your business plans, your book, your marketing strategies. But those are the 3 platforms that you really do need to be on, because that's where most people go to. they think of Audible, they think of Amazon, and they think of Apple Books. So you really should be on those platforms. But that's a conversation that we have on our first call. If you would like to book a call with me, please do. You can do that. Here's the graphic on the screen if you are seeing the video portion of the podcast. It is bit.ly, which is bit.ly/audiobook onboarding. And for those of you just listening to the audio, there you go, bit.ly/audiobook onboarding. One more thing that I wanted to also share with you is Marcy's website, where you can check out what she does as a coach. And that is I don't want to botch up the name, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to spell it out so people can go to your website. I know you said Miramare Point Press is the English way of saying it instead of Miramare, right? Is that?
Hey,
is that,
you got it.
Hey, look at that. I can speak Italian.
You got it.
So it's MIRAMAREPONTEPRESS.com. Miramare Point or Ponte? Ponte Press.
Mm-hmm.
I still botch it up.
Yeah, you did good. They can also go to marcypusey.com and it'll lead them over.
marcypusey.com. Awesome. I love that. That's easier to say. Oh, yeah. So resilience is basically our topic because authors need to have resilience. That is your business. You are an entrepreneur. I consider you a professional. You're not a hobbyist. You are an author. You have a published book. And, the goal is, I know Marcy's goal is this, my goal is this, and that is self-publishing is not this secondhand thing that you sweep under the carpet. That is not true because the people who self-publish their books are just as professional looking as any other traditional publisher that's out there. When you compare book A and book B, here's a publisher, traditional publisher, here's your self-published book, and you can't even tell the difference. That's the beauty of self-publishing. And what's great about being self-publishing your book is that you're in full control. When it comes to royalties, when it comes to control of your product, of your, again, this is, you're creative. This is your art. You are an artist. As a writer, you're an artist. You should have creative control over your art. So that's why I'm a big proponent of self-publishing as well. Now, Marcy, you mentioned about being uncomfortable. And I'm glad you said that because I wanted to bring this up. And because there's something that I've seen on Instagram, which is something that I do every day. And that is cold plunging.
Yep.
Cold plunging, yes. Now, I do it. Well, I started doing it because I had a full rotator cuff tear in my shoulder, and I wanted to do some alternative methods to help with, not only just the pain but inflammation. With the muscles and joints, and plus there's a lot of other benefits with doing cold plunges, both from a physical standpoint and also a mindset and emotional standpoint as well. There's a lot of benefits to it, which is why I do it. And I continue to do it. And I want to get your thoughts and opinions on this as well. And the reason why I feel like it makes so much sense, especially for authors, is that it's uncomfortable. And as an entrepreneur, we put ourselves in uncomfortable situations all the time, and it helps build resilience. It helps you build resilience to embracing the uncomfortable, because that's what you do as an entrepreneur. You embrace the uncomfortable. You have to make tough decisions. You have days that some days are really tough, some days are really great. But that's just the nature of being your own boss. But that's why I love doing cold plunges, not only for the physical benefits, but from the mental side, is that it builds resilience. And let me ask you this, Marcy, does it get easy each time you do it?
I don't know if this is a trick question, but it does get easier. Not like the first time I did it, it took a solid 30 seconds before I was just so numb I couldn't feel anything anyway. And a lot of people hop out before that's happened. Like you've got to
Yeah.
get through the first freeze of your body. But now when I get in, it's like 7 seconds. And some of that is mindset. Some of it's my body. I've cued it and trained it to understand what the process is. But the
Mm,
very first time that I got in, I wasn't sure that I wouldn't have a panic attack. It was at the end of a season where I had panic attacks. And
mm,
to your point, or I think where you were going, how we handle all of life will translate to the kind of author that we are. And that because our brain doesn't segment like, oh, you have resilience as an author, but you don't have any over here as a partner or as a parent or as a child or a sibling, whatever it is, right? Or as an employee. It just pulls from the same resources each time that you face a challenge. Do you have the resources you need to overcome the challenge or do you not? And then depending on how that goes, we'll add to the story, oh man, I didn't have the resources. That means I'll never have the resources. And then you've got someone who freezes in hard situations, right? So being able to be an author with the example of cold plunging, who can choose to do something difficult and sit in that water beyond the however many seconds it takes to sort of adjust and get to experience all of the benefits of it, then tells your brain multiple things. Oh, that didn't kill me. I could do that again. That's why it gets easier, is because it's showing yourself that you can do the hard thing. But then when I sit down at my computer and I'm staring at a blank screen, my brain goes, "Oh, a hard thing. We know how to do hard things." And it enables me to pull from some resources, even if the only resource is the belief that I can do hard things because I've been doing them in other places. It will apply that here. But likewise, if I sit down at the computer and I say, "Oh, blank screen, blank page. This feels too hard," and I give up and walk away. Then when I have a hard conversation with a friend later, my brain is going to go, well, we don't do hard things because remember the computer? And it's actually going to inhibit my ability to have a healthy conversation if I'm feeding a narrative that says, well, I can't even put words on a page. How can I interact in a healthy way with someone else? So this
mm.
idea of resilience is really, when I experience something hard, am I able to bounce back from it? And am I able to bounce back in equal measure? So can I get in a cold plunge and hop out before I wanted to and still think that I'm an okay person? That could be a form of resilience. Will I get back in and try it again? That can be a form of resilience. So even quitting, but learning from your quitting or learning from your failing can actually contribute to our resilience. It's what we do with those moments, right? So it applies the same to our work as an author. But if we think that we're going to do hard things over here and then not do hard things over here, that's not how our brain works. It's going to generalize our experiences and then feed us stories about it.
Excellent point. Excellent point. I love the analogy. Doing something like a cold plunge, you do a 3-minute immersion. I have a cold plunge tub at my house.
That's
So
handy.
it's every day, and it's usually, it's been averaging about 37, 38 degrees,
Mm-hmm.
sitting in it for 3 minutes. But, again, like you say, it does build resilience, and it's putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation. But you know what? You're telling yourself, I can.
Uh-huh.
I can. I
Yeah.
can do this. And again, this is something that I've talked about before on previous podcasts. Is about what is the fuel that you're giving your subconscious,
Yeah.
right? The fuel that you're giving your subconscious. Are you giving it bad fuel or good fuel? And the fuel is your belief systems. The fuel are your habits. And if you're saying I can't this and I can't that and I give up on this and I give up on that, that's bad fuel that you're giving your subconscious, and you're doing it over and over. Your subconscious is going to go, okay, all right,
Yeah.
fine. But you need to push that aside, and you need to put in the I can'ts and the I ams and the positiveness, and that's the fuel that you want to give your subconscious. I can write my book. I can tell my story. I have a great voice. I am a great audiobook narrator. I can narrate my own book. Whatever it is, that's what's really important. And that's what, again, builds resilience by having uncomfortable situations that you've
Yeah.
worked through. You are successful, and that's another affirmation, right? That I am successful. Write that down and tell that to yourself. But don't just say it. Say it until you feel it. When you feel it, then you believe it. And when you believe it, then your subconscious believes it. That's what you want to do.
Yeah. And
Um,
acting on it, I think, is a big
and
piece of that as well, right? I can say it, but unless I take action on that belief, my body's not going to integrate it in such a way that now I believe it, right? I can't think myself into believing it. I have to tell myself, I can stay it. I can do this ice plunge. I can do it. And then I have to do it, right? I have to actually get in and show myself that I can do it. And that's where so much of the power comes, is then I get out and I'm like on top of the world because
yeah,
I owned my thoughts. I owned my journey. I didn't let my fear, the panic, the discomfort hijack me. And that's one of the lessons I've had to take in life, but also in my author world and in my coaching world, is that uh, who's in control? My own therapist will say, like, what would it be like to stay the adult in this situation and not let the scared, little girl take over, or the whatever, the other pieces of us that might want to just start driving the car. What does it look like to stay the adult? And for me, that means really then following with action on those things that I'm trying to believe about myself, so that I'm like, see, I'm not just making up stories for you to feel good. I'm actually, I'm literally doing the hard things, and
yeah,
so therefore we can do the hard things,
yeah,
the
that's right. Yeah, we
uncomfortable
can do it.
things.
Yeah, and you know what? Like it doesn't get well. It there's like a two-sided way of looking at it in regards to, like, for the cold plunge, for example.
Does it get easier or
It
not?
doesn't get easier, but it does get easier in a
Right.
sense. Like there are days like I don't want to do this, but you know what? I'm going to do it because I know I can do it, and I've done it before, and I was successful in doing this. And you just take that, and again, like you say, it applies to all the other aspects of your life. So that's how it applies to you as an author. We have a couple more minutes. We're going to do rapid fire questions. I'm going to
Okay.
throw this at you. You ready?
All right.
Here we go. Favorite band or artist? It's supposed to be
This
rapid
isn't
fire,
rapid
Marcy.
fire. I don't know. Favorite. I'm so eclectic and weird. There's like musicals I love. There's like oldies I love. I don't. It's like choosing a child. Um,
Okay.
I mean, recently I've been listening to Creed again.
Okay.
Like, I just have
Perfect.
had an itch for Creed. So,
All right. Favorite color?
my gosh. Favorite color. I like ocean blues. I love the ocean colors, or the greens and blues of the ocean.
Okay. Current book you're reading right now?
I am reading a number of books. One of them is Watership Down.
All right. Current audiobook? Are you listening to an audiobook?
I am not currently listening to an audiobook, but my friends are. I will. The last one I listened to is Spare with Prince Harry, and to your point, he read it himself. And so there were things that he goes emphasized and that he added, and I feel like we're besties now, me and Prince
There
Harry.
you go.
I spent
See,
hours and hours and hours with him. Yeah,
and that's exactly why
I know.
every nonfiction author needs to narrate their own audiobook, because of that. Because when you narrate your own book, you develop an intimate connection with the person that is listening to your book. You develop that, and that's it. We're like besties. That's how it
Besties.
feels, and
You and I
that's
are besties.
and that's when you do a great audiobook.
I just
So let's
okay.
real quickly. How can people find you and stay connected with you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Marcy Marie. I'm on TikTok at Marcy Pusey. You said the websites. And yeah, anyone who's listening to wants to find me in one of those places, I have some guides on publishing, on using AI in our author journey. That's a whole other conversation, but I've got some freebies that I give to help people navigate the use of AI, and also storytelling with a healing element, and the publishing checklist for a variety of writers. So if anyone's interested in any of those, send me a DM.
Awesome. Love it. Marcy, again, thank you so much for sharing your stories, for talking about your business, and of course, being a
Yeah.
guest here on the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it as well. Thank you.
Awesome. So check out Marcy Pusey. Go to marcypusey.com. You can start
Mhm.
there, and I'm sure you'll find everything that you want to know about Marcy and all the things that she offers with her business. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane with Robert Lane Coaching. You can go to robertlanecoaching.com if you're an author and you want to do an audiobook and narrate your own audiobook. Go to my website. There's tons of information there. You can book a call with me. You will talk with me directly, and then I'll give you more information about the Your Book, Your Voice audiobook coaching program. And lastly, your assignment is this. When you're out and about in the world, smile at a stranger, say hello to them, maybe give them a compliment, because that 5 or 10 seconds of your time can mean the world to somebody because you don't know what they're going through. And just that little gesture of kindness can be the one thing that makes their day. So go out there and be good humans. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. We'll be here, of course, next week at the same time. Again, go out there, like I say, be good humans, and appreciate you hanging out with us today on the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Take care, my friends.
This has been Your Book, Your Voice with host Robert A. Lane. Tune in each week for another powerful and informative episode of Your Book, Your Voice, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.